lecture, we are going to see how we can manually set the this keyword. Okay, it will take us back to the one of the previous lectures where we have discussed about the this keyword. So in this lecture, I will assume like whatever we have discussed there, all those things are clear. Okay, so let's get into it. So here I'll create a simple object. I'll again pick the theme of the coding school. Okay, so this time what we are going to do, we are going to create separate coding classes. Okay, there the students will come and they will register. Okay, so let's create one. Let's create for JavaScript or JS. Language, let's use JavaScript, and then language code will be JS obviously, and then we will create a registrations array. Registrations, I'll leave it empty, and then I'll create a method naming register. Okay, so in modern JavaScript, if you remember, I have already told you like there are two ways of creating the methods in an object, right? One is this way, let me show you, where we write the function keyword and then we use everything like so, and there is another way where we can directly write it like this. Okay, so it's all up to your personal preference which one you choose. Okay, I'll go with this one because it looks a little cleaner than this. Okay, so I'll comment it out here, and I assume you have already you already know about all these things, right? Because this is obviously this is how you are going to progress, because if you're not clear with one topic, then it does not make any sense to jump into the other topic which is related to the previous one. Okay, yeah, so now here I'll pass the register ID and then the name of the person who is registering for the course, and then we will simply log out a string. Let's say name has registered for the course, and here we will use the name again, the this dot language. Okay, so I hope you guys know how this all these things are working, right? Like this dot language and everything. Okay, with registration ID, and then we will create a registration ID, this dot language code we have to use, and then we have to use the register ID whatever we pass here. Okay, yeah, let's break it into the separate line. Yeah, now it's visible, I think. Okay, so now let's call it with some data. JS dot, it's JS dot register. Okay, and here I'll pass the name, let's say David, and then his registration ID is 556, and then let's see what we are getting in the console log. Okay, and we are not getting anything. I think I need to refresh it. Okay, so language code is not defined. I think I've used some language code. Okay, so here I have to use this Sorry for that, I forgot this one. I was telling you guys to remember this, but I myself never used it. Okay, so now we got our nice little string which says David has registered for the JavaScript course with registration ID JS556. Okay, let's add some other data into it. Let's use 486 and then this time it's Rahul. Okay, so now again we got some data here, and then let's log the JS object itself and let's see whether we are get okay. We have to push these things into the registrations, right? So for that what we have to do, yeah, so this dot registrations dot push, and then here we have to push this string. Okay, and what we can do, we can simply create store it in some variable const text, and then we are storing it here. Now we can simply use it in the console and then we can push it. Okay, it will be a little bit cleaner. Yeah, so now let's try to log the js.registrations and let's see whether we are getting anything or not. Okay, so now here as you can see we are getting the strings pushed into the array. Okay, and here we have two strings, and this is slash n is coming because we have broke the line into two lines. That is why. Okay, so what we can do to fix it, we can simply remove the extra space and then we will get these two nice strings here. Okay, so now I want to use the same method in another object. Let's say we got another object. Let's copy this and then let's name it to ANG. Okay, and then it will be Angular, and then its code will be AN, and then let's remove these all things. Okay, so now I want to use the same method in this one as well. Okay, how we can do that? Before this keyword, how we have used it, we used the way which is called method borrowing. Okay, but here let me show you another way, and before doing that let me show you what we are going to do. Okay, so let's create a separate method which says register user. Okay, and here we are going to store this js dot register method. Okay, and just have a look, like we are not going to use the parenthesis. Okay, so now this register variable itself is a function. Okay, now let's take a look what we get if we try to call it with some data, and then let's use this. Okay, 756 Raj. Yeah, so now as you can see we are getting undefined, cannot read properties of undefined reading language. Why it is coming? Because here we have used the method which is used in this particular object, right? And if you go into this particular object, what it is doing, it is pointing to some object, and there it is expecting there should be a language code or something. Okay, but since this keyword itself is undefined in this case, so we are getting the error. It is like we are trying to access something like this, undefined dot language, right? And why it is that, why it is so? Because if you remember, if you try to use a method which has this keyword, it will by default point to the global this keyword which will be undefined initially, at least in strict mode. Okay, so by default that this keyword will be undefined in strict mode. If you use the strict mode, If you remove the strict mode, then it will be the global window object, right? So right now, since we don't have any this keyword available, so we are getting the error in the console, okay? And how we can fix this? We can fix this by manually setting the this keyword. And how we can do that? That is what we are going to see now, okay? So now we have this function ready, and you guys will also ask, like, we can explicitly write a function which we can use in both the objects, but we have already wrote it here, so that doesn't matter. You can go with that approach, but I have already wrote it here, so I never wanted to write it over and over again every place, okay? So yeah, I'll use this function and just have a close look what I am going to do now. So let's say I want to use this method in this object, this particular object. So I have to set the this keyword manually pointing to this Angular course, okay? And let's make it Angular, okay? So it will be less confusing, okay? Because right now this method is initially pointing to this JS object, right? So for that we have a method which is called call, okay? So what it will do, it will basically point the this keyword to the object which we are going to pass in the first parameter, okay, in the first argument. So the first argument will be the always the this keyword, as you can see here, okay? And then it accepts the chain of the parameters, chain of the arguments, whatever we pass here, list of the arguments we can say. So here we have to use the object where we want to register this keyword, where we want the this keyword to point. So now I want this method to point to this Angular object, okay? So whatever value I pass should go and store and gets stored in this particular object's registration array, okay? And if you see, I'm not calling this method directly, I'm using call. So this call will call this particular method with these data by setting the this keyword to whatever we have passed here, okay? So I hope it is clear, guys. Now let's see this in action. So what we have to do, we just have to simply log, or we can simply check it like this, Angular.registrations, okay? So now if you see, we have Raj has registered for the Angular course with registration ID AN756, okay? So this way we can manually go ahead and set the this keyword to whichever object we want, okay, using this call method, right? So let's create another object quickly to show you a little bit more. Let's use Node.js this time, JS and NJS it will be, okay? And then let's use this Node.js object. Here we will pass 9984, and then here we will pass JSON, okay? And if you see, if I console log this Node.js, then you will see, yeah, this particular string we are getting in Node.js object, okay? And let me show you that. Let me show you the complete object, okay? So yeah, this is the object which contains the registrations where we are getting that particular string, okay? So this way we can set the this keyword manually, and then we don't have to write the same method over and over again, okay? And now apart from this call method, we also have another method which does the same thing for you guys, okay? And which is this apply method. So apply works a little bit different. Here, as you can see, we have passed the list of the arguments, right? But in apply, instead of passing the list of the arguments, you have to pass an array which contains the elements, right? So what you have to do, instead of this call we'll use apply. Okay, and then in Angular let's pass like 665. Okay, and then this guy, let's name him as Mike. Okay, so as you can see, we are getting the error here. It's a non-object. Create list from array, like some error we are getting here. This is because this second argument is not in an array. If you wrap it inside of the array, then as you can see, the error is gone. The error is no more here. Okay, and if you see these registrations, which we have already in line number 177, which is this one, then we are getting the Mike has registered for the Angular course with registration ID AN665. Okay, and you can store it like this, and if you want, you can move it into a separate variable data, and you can store it like this, and you can simply call that variable here. Okay, yeah. So again, we are getting in line number 179, which is this one. So here we are again getting the same thing. Okay, but here is one thing, guys. In modern JavaScript, this apply method is not used that much because of something which was introduced in modern JavaScript, and I think you guys might be already aware of that. And let me show you what that is. For that, we have to use the same thing, the same call method. Okay, and then how it works something like this. So here I'll remove this data, I'll pass the array, and then I'll simply use the spread operator. And if you know the working of this spread operator, I think you got your answer. Okay, so it will basically unpack the array into the individual elements like this. Okay, so now we have the data something like this in this particular call method. Okay, and that is why we are not getting any error as well. And in this node.js, you can see we are getting that Mike registered for node.js course with 665 ID. Okay, so these are the two methods, and yet two new tools which got added into your toolbox. But there is one more tool which is called bind method, and that is a little bit more important than these two methods. That's why I have kept that method into a separate video. Okay, so this is it for this lecture, guys. See you in the next one.